Welcome today, everyone, and congratulations on joining this session, where we're going to talk about getting set up with your Covidence review. I'm going to be your session presenter today. My name's Julie Brown. I'm Community Manager with Covidence, and I'm based in New Zealand. All attendees in today's session are going to be muted, but you can ask me questions at any time at all by using the questions box, which you should be able to see on the right-hand side of your screen. So you can drop me a message at any time in there, and I'll try and answer questions as they come in or whenever appropriate. So just before we get started, I'd love to know what kind of research area you're working in. So just drop me a note there, and that'll help me kind of guide this session a little bit. So I'd love to hear what kind of area you're working in. This session is recorded, and everyone who's registered will receive the recording within the next 24 hours. So I can see some things coming in. So great, we've got epidemiology, nursing, eating disorders, occupational therapy, stroke research. Wonderful. Yeah, you guys are very busy in lots of different areas. So it's great to see. And I'll try. Looks like lots of people are probably medical and health sciences orientated, so that's good to know as we move forward. Today's agenda, so I'm going to go through how to create an account and a review within Covidence. We're going to look at some really important review settings that will help you it will make the review move more smoothly and manage your review. And then I'm going to go through importing references with you. So a little bit of a background for people who aren't too familiar with Covidence. We're a not-for-profit organisation, and we're here to help streamline the systematic review process. And that's all the way through from creating your review and inviting your co-reviewers, all the way through screening, data extraction, and exporting your data for analysis or synthesis. The way that Covidence works means that you save time without compromising on the quality of your review. We've got a fantastic team based all around the world that help support you and your review from a support perspective and from the engineering perspective as well. And as you can see, we've got over 400,000 users around the world. So Covidence we're a web-based software here to streamline the review process for you. And we're a tool that helps you manage your review project and helps you collaborate with your co-reviewers wherever they may be in the world. And as I said, through Covidence, you can screen your studies, you can retrieve full text during full text screening, you can extract data, and you can track the workflow with the Prisma figure as well. What we are not, we're not a reference manager, we're not EndNote or Zotero, we're not a database like Medline, and we're not a search engine. You can't search for studies within Covidence like you would with a search engine, and you can't do any statistical analysis currently within Covidence. So I'm just going to begin with a poll. So I just want to find out how confident you feel at the moment about getting your review set up in Covidence. So just give you a moment or two to answer that question. Great, thank you very much, everyone. Just give one more second. Wonderful. Okay, I'm going to close the poll now. And we can see that 48% of you are not confident at all, 45% somewhat confident, and 6% very confident. So hopefully by the end of this session, we'll see a little shift there, and that you'll all be feeling much happier about setting your review up and importing those references ready for screening. Okay, so going to launch in now and talk about that kind of first part of our agenda, which is about invitations and getting yourself a Covidence account. So there are a number of different ways of joining Covidence. You can receive an invitation that looks a little bit like this one. It might look like this if you're invited to join a university account or an organizational account, or if you've been invited to join a review. So you receive an invitation like this one. You just need to click on the accept invitation button. You can also join Covidence by going to our website and clicking on the free trial button. This allows you to create your own personal Covidence account. There's a little bit of information, required, and then your account will be created. If you are part of an organization, some of the organizations have pages on our knowledge base that provide you with all the information you need to sign into that organization. So at the moment, you'll need to request access to an organizational account. You can't just sign in with your email at the moment, so you need to request access first. So I'm just going to go to a review now. So once you've set up your Covidence account, everybody lands on a page like this. If you're new to Covidence, it's going to be completely blank. This is my account, so there are quite a few reviews in here. And as you start to create your reviews, they'll fill up here, and they're under headings of where those reviews are housed. So you have your own personal reviews if you've got a personal account. If you have an organizational account, the reviews created there will appear under that organizational name as well. So everything's neatly divided into where the review belongs. Up here on the right-hand side, you'll see your initials, and if you click on this, we go to a different review and see if it works. No, it's going to be one of those days. If you click on that particular button, your profile will drop down, and from there you can add new email addresses. So you have the original email address that you signed up with, but you can add additional email addresses there as well. Do not add another reviewer's email to your profile. The profile is just for one individual. Okay, so one person, one account. The accounts are free to set up, so you don't need to worry about that. But you can add multiple email addresses, so you can have your Gmail, you can have more than one organizational account email, but it means that everything's there all together and centralized in one place. When you want to create a new review within Covidence, you just need to click on the Start a New Review button. So when you click on the Start a New Review button, you get taken to this page. You can select whether you're going to be creating a Cochrane review or not. And so Cochrane reviews are a specific type of systematic review. I'm not going to be creating one of those today. They follow a slightly different process. You type in the name of your review. So I'm just going to pop in title for my review. These questions, you will need to fill in each of these in order to create the review. So they're kind of compulsory questions. Select the type of review that you want to do. I'm going to select systematic review. Select the question type. There's a drop-down list here. I'm going to select an intervention review and the area of research. So I'm going to select from the list here, I'm going to select medical and health sciences on this occasion. Now, if you want more information about what each of these questions is referring to, there's a link out to our knowledge base page. There, so you can find out more information. If you select medical and health sciences, you'll be given a couple of options here. Now, the options are to add in the Cochrane randomized controlled trial classifier. So what that does is it goes through the abstracts that you import and then titles, and it looks to see if it thinks they're randomized controlled trials or not. And it will then add a tag to each of those references for you. It will tag it as being either a possible randomized controlled trial or not a randomized controlled trial. So we can click on this one. And what you can also do is to automatically remove all of the studies which have been tagged as not randomized trials before you start screening. So this is going to save you a significant amount of time in your screening process. And we can add that one as well. This is completely in your hands. So if you don't want these tags on, you can turn them off at any time. And you can also check the studies that have been removed to make sure that that's been done accurately. And I'll show you how to do that in just a moment. You can then select the account that you want your review to come out of. So I can have my own personal account, or I can have an institutional account, and then click the Create Review button. Once you've created your review, that's going to take you back to the landing page here, and your review will appear in the list. If I just scroll down, I've got my Getting Started review here. So this is the review summary page. When you land here, this is the same for every single review you create. The great thing about the summary page is that it follows all the logical steps of a systematic review. So we've got importing references, we've got title and abstract and full text screening and data extraction. You can choose to move through these sequentially, but you can also start your full text review screening before you finish title and abstract. So you can have people working on different parts of the review at different times. You've also got options to export, so you can export data and references. You've got a button for the Prisma figure, so this will allow you to view and export the Prisma figure itself, which is a flow diagram of all the studies as they move through your review, and the settings button. So I really recommend that when you create your first review and you come to this page, that you click on the settings button and spend a little bit of time here. This is going to end up saving you lots of time in the long run, and will help you manage your review. So you've got 5 tabs across the top here that we're going to go through. The first one is review settings. So when you come here, you have your review name, the review type, the questions that you filled out at the beginning. Again, from here, you can click or remove those options for identifying randomized controlled trials. And once again, that's only available if you're working on a medical and health sciences review. You can add in, copy and paste in your search strategy. And that's here mainly because it just means, again, everything's centralized. If you need your search strategy when you write up your review or your project, it means the strategy is here. You don't have to go and try and find it in a protocol or go back to the librarians. So everything, again, is in one place. If your review is an update, you can pop in the previous publication. From here, you can also make decisions about how many reviewers are going to be required for the screening process for title and abstract screening and for full text screening. The options are to have single reviewer or dual reviewer, which is the default. I'm going to keep it on dual reviewer. Now, just because you've only got the option of 1 or 2 reviewers here, don't panic that you can only have 2 people on your screening team. You can have as many people screening as you want to in your review. If you've got 10 people on your team, they can all screen. What this selection does is it makes the option for whether studies will move forward with 1 vote or with 2 votes. Okay, so I've selected each study needs to have 2 votes in order to move forward, which is kind of the standard process. Not all reviews need 2 people, so sometimes narrative reviews or qualitative reviews might only need 1 person voting. So that's why we've got the option you can change to single reviewer. That's exactly the same for full text screening. You can also make decisions here about the tool that you want to use for data extraction. And in Covidence, we have 2 extraction tools. Extraction 1 is the default extraction tool here. And there's a little kind of checklist there that shows you the benefits of choosing extraction 1. If you are conducting an intervention review or a Cochrane review, then this is the option that you should select. It follows a very structured format, and you can extract the data with 2 data extractors. For extraction 2, if you choose this one, this is better suited for any review type. You can use it with an intervention review, scoping, narrative review, qualitative review. It's a little bit more flexible in the way that data is collected and the way that you create your template. And you can use this with either dual reviewer data extraction or with a single reviewer. Now, you don't have to make your final decision straight away. There's lots of information here about how to choose which tool might be best for you. And you can come back at any time and change these if you want to. Any changes that you make, remember to click on the Save button. And we go to Reviewers. So this is where you can bring in your new team members into the review. It's very easy to do. You click on the Invite Another Reviewer button. It does say first name there, but I fully acknowledge that in larger teams, some people might have the same name, so I always put in the full name of the reviewer. Pop in their email and click the Invite button, and that will send an invitation off, just like the one that I showed you at the very beginning. Your co-reviewer simply needs to click on the Accept Invitation button. They might need to create their own Covidence account, but otherwise they'll be part of the review and their name will appear on this list. If you're part of an organizational account, then you can invite an unlimited number of reviewers to your review, and they can be from your own institution or any other institution, and there's no cost to anyone that you invite. If you're just using the Covidence trial version, you can only have 2 reviewers on your review. You won't be able to invite any additional reviewers unless you upgrade to a paid plan. The invitations last for 30 days, and so sometimes people are a bit slack and you might need to re-invite them. If you want to remove a reviewer, you can click on the Remove Reviewer button. If you have any problems with invitations, then you can just contact us at the support team, support@covidence.org, and we'll be able to sort that out for you. The Team Settings tab provides you with the option to have a look at not only what the whole team is doing, but also you can see individual contributions as well. So this example we're looking at doesn't have any activity in it because this is a brand new review. But as screening commences, you'll see the team progress bar moves across, and you'll also be able to see how many votes have been cast by each reviewer. Now, what this means is that you have oversight of exactly what's happening, both as a senior reviewer in charge of the review and as the individual team member. Means that you can see if people are slipping behind with their screening, and you might need to remind them to carry on. As an individual, if you've been set a target to screen 30 studies, for example, you'll be able to see exactly how many studies you've contributed to here. So it's easy for you to follow those kind of targets. There are a couple of rules that can be set. You can have everyone can do anything. So anyone on the team will be able to screen and resolve conflicts. Or you can set rules where you can make decisions about who can resolve conflicts. So sometimes you want a senior member of the team to kind of have that final decision about which studies move forward or not. So conflicts arise when there's a difference in the way that the two reviewers have voted. And I can do that by adding my name to this list. What this means is that only I will be able to resolve those conflicts at the moment within this team. And if any of my colleagues try and resolve a conflict, they'll get an error message. So they won't be able to do that. If you want to be the person who screens all of the studies, so we've got 2 votes required, I can make a setting here, a rule, if I add my name. Now I will have to screen all of the studies, and my colleagues, one of my colleagues will be able to cast the second vote. Okay, so this rule, whoever's name I put here, has to screen all of the studies. It's exactly the same for full text review. And for data extraction, again, you can see overall progress, individual team progress. And if you're using extraction 1, you can also set some rules here. Again, about who's reviewer 1, because they have slightly different permissions, and you can find out about those in one of our other step-by-step webinars, specifically on data extraction. You can set some rules about who can resolve consensus. So that's basically the conflict issue, but in data extraction. For the eligibility criteria, here you can add in the inclusion and exclusion criteria for your review. Now, this is going to be really useful when you start screening, because you can have this information in a drop-down list. So as you begin screening, if you just want to check on something, you don't have to come back to this page, you don't have to go to your protocol. You'll find that there's a button called criteria, and if you click on that when you're screening, this list will appear. It just means that the whole team is always on the same page. Okay, so you don't, it improves the reliability of screening as well. So this follows a PICO format, which is the population, intervention or exposure, comparator or context, outcome, and study characteristics. So for this particular review, I want to focus on randomized trials and not cohort observational studies. So I can add another reason in here. for example. And remember to click Save. This also works with other review frameworks, if you like. So you can use this to add in, if you're just looking at population and exposure, you don't have a comparator, that's fine. You can put not applicable here if you don't have a comparator. I've got a question. Can you add terms, for example, for exposure as you go along? Well, this is the eligibility criteria for your review. So you shouldn't be adding criteria as you go along. These should be already set down in your review protocol. So these criteria shouldn't change. Okay, so I wouldn't recommend that you add things as you go along in this particular context. So it works well even if you're doing a qualitative review or a review of observational studies. Putting this information into eligibility criteria works just as well. You can also add highlights. I'm just going to go back 1 second because we've got a follow-up question here. Okay, so Glenda's said about Glenda's original question was about adding terms as you go along. And the follow-up question is about there might be different terms about the same exposure. So you're quite correct there. There might be different terms, the same as I've got here in this example. So I've got vitamin C is what this review is going to be about. And I've also got another term for vitamin C. So I've got ascorbic acid here. If there was another term, then I could add that. So it's the same with your exposure. You can add them in here. If you've got your protocol, the protocol should have all the variations of terms already predefined within it. If, of course, something does pop up and you've forgotten it in your protocol, then of course you can add it here. I think what I'm trying to emphasize is that because this is the eligibility criteria for your review, you shouldn't be coming in really and adding brand new terms. That's not particularly good kind of practice for writing and preparing systematic reviews. But if it is an alternative term that you just haven't got on your list, then you can add that in. Highlights. So what the highlights does is it adds highlights, green highlights for included words and red highlights for excluded words. And these will be added to your abstract when you're screening. So this is a fantastic way of speeding up the screening process. It brings out words really clearly to you that will help you with the screening. Although this list is unlimited, I really recommend that you focus on keywords here. If you do have a very large review, so there's lots of abstracts and lots of keywords, you just end up with like a lot of, trying to think of the right word, it ends up being very messy, basically, and it doesn't help the process. What does help the process is for you to have a list of key words. I try and limit it to maybe 10 inclusion and 10 exclusion at the very most, and that will work well. You can also start to add the full text exclusion reasons here. So when you get to full text screening and you exclude a study, you have to provide a reason for excluding the study. That reason appears in the Prisma flow diagram. So we've got a list of reasons that are provided here for you. You can delete these if they're not relevant to your review, and you can easily add in another reason here, the add button, and it will appear on your list. This list is not the final list, so if as you go to screening, you go to exclude a study, you come up with a new reason, you can add a new reason to the list very easily from the screening page. But getting it all here when you're going through the settings saves time and makes it much easier. Again, you can have as many reasons for exclusion as you wish. Then we've got study tags. So study tags can be added to studies at any time. There are these two tags are kind of fixed in the system and are part of Prisma, so you can't delete these two tags. But you can add new tags very easily. And the kind of tags you might want to add are things like this. I might want to tag studies that need to be translated, and I can filter for those when I'm doing my screening. So I might want to add a tag for studies to come back to. Another one that's quite common is background. So background reading. So sometimes as you go through the studies, you realize, well, this study isn't actually going to get through to my final included studies, but it would be really great when I'm writing the introduction to my report or my publication. So again, you can tag studies for that reason. Excuse me. And I can also add tags so that I can divide up references for particular teams. So I might have two teams of reviewers for my review, and I can allocate reviews for team A to screen and for team B to screen. So again, you can add tags like this. The important thing to realize about tags is that they're visible to everybody on the team. So be very careful to try and not use tags that might influence a co-reviewer. Just checking another question that's come in. So tags can be used for studies that are included and studies that are excluded. So yes, it doesn't matter whether a study is included or excluded. You can add tags at any time through the review process to help you identify studies or divide studies up that you might want to kind of filter at a later point. So in terms of studies that are excluded, you do have to give the reason for exclusion. That's kind of different part of the review process, but those studies can still have tags added to them. So you can still add a tag that it's good for background reading, or that it's specifically about children, for example. So those are all of the settings. Once you've completed that, you're kind of ready to go, and the first step is importing. So when we get to importing references, you will have done all of your searching outside of Covidence, hopefully with the help of your librarians if you're part of an organization. And then you can import those references into Covidence. You can import, if you have a paid plan or are part of an organization, you can bring in as many references as you wish. If you are on the trial version of Covidence, you can only bring in and screen 500 references. If you want to screen more than that, then you need to upgrade to a paid plan. So to import references, click on the import button. You can import references in one of three formats. So you can import in EndNote XML, PubMed format, and RIS text format. Now, most main databases will allow you to export in EndNote XML or RIS text formats without any issue. Just to note that it does need to be EndNote XML. If you try and import a generic XML file, you'll get a file error. So it does have to be EndNote XML format. You can import files up to 15,000 references in a batch, as long as you're not in the trial version. So if you're in a paid version, 15,000 references in a batch, which is about 50 megabytes of data. If your number of references or file size exceeds that, not a problem. You'll just need to bring in several batches instead of one large file. But as I said, for paid accounts, you can bring in as many references as you wish. One thing to note while we're here is when you're exporting from a database, make sure that you click options to export all fields, or at a minimum, make sure that you've checked to export the abstract and the DOI, so the digital object identifier. And what that is it's a link that takes you straight to the journal page, and that's going to be important when you get to full text screening and you want to locate studies. Sometimes when people import files and they haven't clicked on select all fields, you might find that abstracts haven't come over. So if that's the case, I recommend that you double check and make sure that you exported all fields. So that's something to just be aware of. The other thing to be aware of is that some databases, like, well, it's not a database, but some sources such as Google Scholar will not export abstracts. So again, it's not an issue with Covidence. If you find the abstract isn't there, the abstract isn't exported by the source that you had selected. So to bring references in, you need to click on the import. Most people will select screen. This brings your references into title and abstract screening. But there are other options there, and those options you might find that as you get towards the end of your review, you might do some additional searching. You might find some grey literature, and you're definitely going to include that study. And so you can import a reference or references directly into included studies for data extraction. I'm going to select screen here. Excuse me. Next, you can select source. So this is usually the database that the references come from. If what you're looking for isn't on this list, you can select the Manage Sources option and you can add a source. So if I'm working in education, for example, an education database is ERIC. I'm going to add ERIC here. So ERIC appears as an additional option, and I can remove that if I wish to. I could also add websites if I wanted to as a source. It's got websites here, or I could just classify something as maybe grey literature. It's another option some people choose. So I can have all these options available. If you choose to select one of these, I'm going to select Sinal, for example. If you choose to select one of these, this information automatically is transferred to your Prisma figure. So when you go to export Prisma, it will show you how many references came from each source. That in a moment, when I've imported some references, we can go and look at the import history, and we'll be able to see how I can change the sources, or I can add additional sources. And then you need to choose a file. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to show you a live import from EndNote first of all. EndNote's used quite commonly. So I've got a list of references here that I want to import into my Covidence file. I kind of feel that, to show you how to do this live is often much easier when you actually see how it's done. So I'm going to select all the references I have here. I'm going to go to File and Export. Now, just a heads up, I'm using a Mac, so the images you see might look slightly different if you're not using a Mac, but the actual kind of headings and buttons will be the same. So I'm going to save this with a name, and I'm going to save it to a folder on my desktop. Now, in terms of the file type, you need to select XML from the list to be able to import this into Covidence. So file type must be XML, and output style, make sure that you've selected show all fields. Save. Now go back to my review, and so I've want these references to go into screen. I've selected a source. I'm going to choose the file. So I'm going to select my Getting Started XML and click on the Import button. See the little blue buttons indicate that it's bringing the references through. And we'll see, I'm just going to see there are 43 references ready for me to start screening. And here, if I click on the import references, I get the history of every file I've brought in and if any duplicates were found. So I'm going to also show you how to do that with, I'll do this with PubMed next. So I've got PubMed search here. Now for PubMed, you don't have to go through a reference manager if you don't want to. So you can export from PubMed into EndNote or Zotero or Mendeley, for example, or you can import directly. So to import directly, going to click Save. You can select all results on the page or a selection. I'm going to click all results. And then in the format, see there are a number of options here. You need to select PubMed. So make sure you've selected PubMed and create file. Okay, that's saved a file there now. And I go back to my review. So the import options are exactly the same. So import into, I'll select screen again. Source, I'm going to select PubMed, choose file. I've got my downloads, PubMed option, import. The blue buttons were again showing me that it's working. Okay, now they've been imported directly from PubMed. So it's very easy. Just make sure that the option you select is PubMed. Now what it's doing here is it's looking, I've had ticked options for tagging for randomized controlled trials and removing them if they were ineligible. So that's working through all of the references that I've imported so far. Now what Covidence does is that it looks at all of the references that you import, and in each file it looks for duplicates, and then it will look for any new file you import. It will look against any previous imports. So it looks within and against all previous imports as well for duplicates. While that's going through its process, I'm also going to show you importing from Zotero, because a lot of people use Zotero as a reference manager. So here we are, I've got a Zotero database. Again, I'm going to select all. This time I'm going to right click and select export items. Again, from the drop down list, make sure you select EndNote XML and click OK. I'm going to name it again, double check that it's going to be an EndNote XML as a file format. Save. Go back to the review. Right, so I'm going to import. I'm going to pop these into screening. And I'm going to select, let's call this one, it's an Eric. Choose the file. Here's a Zotero XML file. So I've had a question come in about, if you're using Zotero, why not select that file type? So the only file types that you can bring into Covidence are EndNote XML and the rest text format. So that's why I've selected EndNote XML as the file type to come out of Zotero. So again, this is going through that process of looking through randomized controlled trials, and it's looking for studies that it can exclude. So we can see that it's already auto-excluded some studies. This can take, depending on how many references you've brought in, it can take a little while for the process to go through. But while it's doing that, we'll just go to the import history. So I'll go back again, show you how to get to the import history. So if you click on View Details, this will take you to the import history. You can see the files that you've imported. As long as you haven't started any screening, you can undo an import. If you started screening, you'll no longer be able to undo an import, and you'd have to contact the support team in order to be able to reset the review for you. So Annalise is just asking about the Zotero question again about there are other types of file type. That's right, there's a whole list of file types, Annalise, in Zotero, but only the 3 file types, so EndNote XML, PubMed, and the rest text format can be imported into Covidence. So those are the only 3. And I demonstrated importing EndNote XML from Zotero. If you try and import any other file format, you'll get an error message, it won't import it. Glinda has asked, If it finds duplicates, does it get rid of the new ones, but does it keep the information? Okay, so I'll show you the duplicates in just a second. While we're just on this page, I brought in each of these files with one file source. Okay, so what I can do is, if I've actually brought this in and it was composed of two file sources, for example, I can click on the source option and I can add additional sources. So if I brought over this particular file and it had references from Eric and from Sinal, all in one file, as long as I know exactly how many references were from each source, I can change the numbers here. So I could have, if I just had one, it just had one reference from Sinal. As long as the numbers add up, you'll get red lines until all the numbers match. Save. I now have multiple sources here. Okay, so I can bring in references from a single source, or I can bring in from my reference manager multiple sources all in one file, and I can identify them here. And all that information, as I said before, automatically will go to the Prisma figure for you. In terms of the duplicates, every original study is given a unique identifier number within Covidence. Any duplicates that are identified will come here. So my searches haven't found any duplicates. But if I were to bring in, let's bring in the PubMed, just checking the time, got time. I'll bring in the PubMed file again, and then we'll have some duplicates. I'll just give it a different source name. And bring that in. Okay, so this has automatically removed some duplicates for me. And I can go to the duplicates. So if I look at this particular section, these are all of the studies that have been removed before I start screening. So this includes duplicates. And if I was doing a medical and health sciences review and I had selected to remove the non-randomized control trials, they will all appear here. So I've got an original study and a new import that's detected a duplicate. Can check these side by side. If this is not a duplicate, I can click on the Not a Duplicate button. This study will then be automatically given a new unique identifying number. Those studies that have been automatically removed, I can check those as well. So again, everything's always in your hand, always there for you to be able to double check any information that's removed by us. So you can check through these. These have all been tagged as non-randomized controlled trials. So I can check the abstract. If for some reason I thought this should go through to screening, I can click on the Move to Screening button. That study will go into my screening list. Okay, on every page of Covidence, there's a Need Help button, which you can click on. This means that you can email the support team at any time at all. Just click on the Send an Email button. You'll be able to email us, or you can look up something in our knowledge base. The knowledge base can also be found at the top of the screen with the little question mark. And you can explore the knowledge base. This is a resource I recommend that you come to if you haven't explored it before. It's broken down into really useful sections. So things that we've gone through today about getting your account set up, setting up your review, inviting team members, and importing references. So that's all here. And it's broken down into how-to documents, some of which have embedded videos. And also there are answers to frequently asked questions. So this is a great place to come to as kind of first step to see if you can find the answer. And if you can't, of course, contact the support team. Just got a few more questions coming in. Does the duplicate removal process keep track of all the sources of the reference? So no, just go back. The sources of individual references is not recorded. So we know how many references were imported from each source, but we don't track which individual reference came from which source. So that information is not available. And Anne has asked, if I set up a review, can anyone in the team delete the review, or do I have administrator rights to protect it? So anyone on the team can perform actions unless you've created a rule for it. But it does mean that if I go to settings, there is a delete button here. So anyone on the team can delete the review. Now, nothing in Covidence is completely deleted or removed. So don't worry if someone presses that button by accident, your review and your data will not have been hard deleted. Contact the support team and we will be able to return that review to your system, to your account. I'm just going to launch another poll. Keep those questions coming in if you have any more. So having seen the webinar, how confident do you now feel about setting up your review? I'll just give you a moment or two to answer that question. Thanks for the great questions that you've asked during the webinar so far. They've been wonderful, really useful questions. Okay, looks like everyone's voted who's going to vote. So I'll close that poll and share the results with you. So you can see we've had a nice change there. So no one is not at all confident now, which is amazing. And we've got 65% somewhat confident and 35% very confident. So that's wonderful. I think you've benefited from this. I think the next step is for you to go away and create your accounts. If you need to set up your reviews, start practicing going through the settings. Watch this video again because it's a lot to take in as we move through it in this hour. And look at the knowledge base. You'll find a lot of information there that you'll need. So we're at time. Thank you very much for all your attention. I apologize again for the little glitch at the beginning. We got there in the end. Hope you all have a wonderful day. And if you do have any questions at all, then contact us at support@covidence.org and we'll be able to help you out with your review. Thanks, everyone.